All right. Woo. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome down the Security Rabbit Hole to another edition of the Down the Security Rabbit Hole podcast. I'm Raf, riding shotgun. Whoop, that way. Riding shotgun with me is Jim. My guest rescheduled and then blew me off this morning. So, hey, you got
Hey.
us. And we're fresh off of Thanksgiving break. We're recording this on Monday, December 1st in the morning. And there's a lot going on, but I think Jim, I want to start with, how was your Thanksgiving?
It was amazing. So I got to celebrate not only Thanksgiving, but the whole family was in town. Like I think a
Oh,
lot
that's
of
awesome.
people, and then birthday, right? So I got to squeeze in a birthday during the same week. That's
Wait,
pretty
you
fun.
had a birthday?
Yeah.
Well, happy birthday, dude! I didn't know.
Thanks, brother.
That's right. I should know what your birthday is. I always I try to send you something.
That's okay. No. I stopped counting at like 30. I'm done.
Yeah, fair enough. Fair enough. Well, happy birthday.
Thank you.
And so it's good to give family. We did something similar. I had my folks over. I had the kids over here, and we kind of just we made it. I put them on some photos on the Instagram, but like I think we ate better this year than we have ever previously. It was just so good. We now like we bake our own bread. We do everything from scratch as much as we can now, and yeah, I got a bread machine. It's awesome. Like every morning, the house smells like fresh bread. It's ridiculous. This morning it was fresh bread, bacon, and coffee. Come on. Right? My kids were down for school like so fast this morning. It was ridiculous.
Make that into like a candle scent or a soap or something.
Oh, that's a good one. That would be a good one to do. Like you wake up to fresh bread, bacon, and coffee. I was gonna savor that for a moment. I hope you guys, as you're listening to this, I hope you had a good Thanksgiving. Although you're listening to this probably the week after Thanksgiving, but that's all right. I thought we'd do just a short episode on one things that this industry probably should be thankful for, and a couple other random things that are going on. So, listen, it has as it's not lost on me as we approach 700 that there are just a truck ton of things that I need to be thankful for. One, the listeners, you guys putting this show over the top every single month. It's great. I love it. I love doing this. It's a lot of fun. I get to hang out with you, Jim, and when James is around, we've got a good time, and we have great guests when they make the episode. And it's been great. I love growing this show. I can't believe we crossed, let's see, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. 50. We are now on the 16th iteration season of the show. Wow. I can't believe it. I honestly can't. Like it is nuts that it's been going this long.
People may not know this, but I shouldn't say that. I'm a big time fan of the show, right? I'm super grateful for actually being part of it now, which is I still honestly, every time we begin an episode, I have to pinch myself and make sure I'm squared away because it's always been a really big deal to me. And I remember, I think I sent it to you as I took a screenshot of my Spotify a couple years ago.
Yeah, I remember that.
And it had 2,000 hours of listening that I had done that year of the show. And I replay them. So you have like these really favorite ones where guests have come on and done and said amazing things or had an amazing argument or amazing position or a particular view. And you go back and listen to these things and you're just taking on this huge arc of the entire industry. It's fascinating to me. People,
Jim, I started doing this because I said this before, but I started doing this because there were so many good areas to get content, but none of it was at the time, right? 2011, there were few podcasts that were centered around just sort of like the what's going on, interesting people kind of thing. There was a lot of podcasts that you couldn't listen to at the office that I listened to, but you just couldn't listen to at the office or share with your boss or something. And I wanted to do something different. Since then, there's, I think, at least 1,000 cyber podcasts. I am super grateful that you guys listen and catch us every week. And we have like this last series. Well, now it's a trifecta on a trilogy on vulnerability management is interesting. We started with Rob talking about how like this whole thing is just busted. We had Brian on to just sort of pile on why it's busted, but from a slightly different angle. I don't think maybe pile on is not the right word. Maybe it's he gave a perspective on where the breakage is or what's wrong with it, and just sort of like added supporting evidence to Rob's. And then the as we record this, it's going to be released tomorrow, but you guys have already listened to this if you're listening to this show. Jay Jacobs was on with me talking about EPSS, and like his conversation made sense in a way that like I walked out of the first 2 episodes with absolutely no hope whatsoever. His gave me a little hope that maybe there are people that know what they're doing, and don't just try to throw like super fancy math at you just to confuse the heck out of you and just to make this super tough. So, but it's like this. We did that on AI. We did this on vulnerabilities. We keep coming back to the law and cyber with Tuma. I got to get Tuma back from the great state of Texas because I love that guy.
That kind of stuff is fantastic. And if you look back, you can see these themes, and right. So you might have had, in the, late 2000s, if you will, before the 2020s hit, sort of a series on SIM and SOC and stuff like that. And then, with Anton, for example, and then you keep moving that ball forward. So it's really interesting to watch, again, this sort of arc, because you can really get a good feel for the evolution of the industry just by listening to your show, because you have these different guests, sometimes the same guests, obviously, these experts in these particular fields that come on and talk about stuff. And then to hear it, season over season or year over year, and to have certain things not change at all. Let's be honest. Come on.
Yeah.
And then certain things change dramatically,
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned SIM. Like we had that conversation about SIM and SOC like a decade apart a couple of times. And I think we could probably have it again next week, and it would be different but almost the same, right? It's weird, Jim. The industry went like when you started and then I joined a couple of years later. Like it wasn't a thing. It was we weren't a profession yet. It was IT people. We were a little subset of that. And then like an amoeba, we kind of went created our own bubble. And I feel like it's been like it was a crazy uphill ride, and then the roller coaster tilted down, and it's just it's been weird. I think it's the best way to describe it. It's been weird. I can't say that I'm super like listen, this industry pays me. It affords me a great lifestyle. I'm very grateful for having this for this profession and being able to do what I do. But like work-life balance sucked for a long time. And for some people it still sucks. And I think that kind of takes us to the post we all saw this morning. Like Marcus Hutchins, professionally loves to do this. But he posted this. This all started, but somebody, I don't remember who it was anymore, but basically commenting on, they work for some AI company, and like they work, I just got off of a 36-hour shift, but I'm grateful to these. And I read that and thought, that's a weird thing to brag about. And then Marcus kind of laid into him just a bit. And then like out of the woodwork come these people that are just absolutely hammering on him for like, and this one was like, yeah, I've been around this industry for 5 years. You don't know what you're talking about. You're irrelevant. I'm reading this going, really? Wow, your vast 5 years of experience. Well, you're so cool, man. What's that like? Oh,
yeah, I tell you, LinkedIn is the gift that keeps giving sometimes, and I sometimes I do struggle. I at times when people are like, I've been in this thing since forever, and it's 5 years, like you said. But in their defense, let's call it what it is. Sometimes a year feels like 5, so 5 years is 25 years in the industry, that kind of thing. But Marcus is great because he knows exactly how to sort of say it without completely going sideways. But yeah, I think you can't be in security. You can't be in, let's call it IT for that matter, without pulling no sleep 3-dayers, that kind of thing. We've all been there half a dozen times, kind of thing. But it was different, and like you said, in the earlier days where you mentioned like it was an uphill climb. There was no profession. You were constantly trying to explain what you meant by security. I vividly remember saying that, and people going, "So you do, like, you're a guard? You're like a security guard?" And
Yeah, right.
and I had to like explain the concept of the internet, and I remember when firewalls were starting to become a thing. And back
starting
when,
to.
yeah, back when Cisco routers took floppy disks, kind of thing. So yeah,
Oh boy.
yeah. So and it was an interesting conversation. That's how a lot of us got in. Early days got in pen testing. You kind of call it what it is, but it's very interesting. It's very interesting right now. I think we're still an industry seeking an identity in some cases. It's hyper specialized, but is that a good thing or a bad thing? Very interesting.
I would argue, Jim, that the notion that, and to be fair, like there are many instances that I recall, and some I don't, because my brain was too tired to remember these things. Where I got into the office in my late, I'd say late teens, early 20s, through my late 20s, I think I would say, where I'd get into the office, Friday morning at like 7 a.m., take the first train downtown, go into city, start work, and then like to work a full day, and it had something to do on the weekend that then went sideways, and then we just kept working. And I remember leaving the office one time at like 6 a.m. as people were showing up to work. They're like, "Man, you're still wearing," you're like, "Oh, you wearing the same clothes you were on Friday." Yeah, I never left, y'all. You slept a little bit on the couch there, and you woke up and you kept going because the system was down or something broke. But I don't recall ever being like, bragging about how many hours I worked. That's a weird, like, that's like the folks that work for Elon over at SpaceX when they would say like, "Oh yeah, man, I just sleep in my office all week." It's like that's not healthy. I mean, that's there there used to be we abolished that a long time ago in our nation's history. You don't have to do that anymore. I mean, it is weird that there are still folks that feel, I guess, later in your career that's acceptable. I don't know. I feel like the pendulum went from like work hard, grind, to like everything should be given to you on your second day into the industry, and now it's kind of like, because of startup culture, that corner of the space, it's like, oh yes, we work 80-hour weeks. I don't know. Is it worth it?
No, I think we've all been there. The short answer is no. It's a lot of sacrifice because 80-hour weeks turn into 120-hour weeks, turn into living on a plane, turn into whatever. But I think
that I remember.
Yeah, oh yeah, and boy, horror stories out the wazoo. But I think it has a combination of a culture that's been created just within the technology sector, not just that startup culture. That startup sort of culture, like work hard, make a lot of money, is now just work hard because everybody's working hard and everybody's like gung ho. And I think there's almost like a weird competitive thing happening. So I see branches of people going to like a very much a work-life balance. They've sort of seen the other side, and they don't like it.
Yeah.
And then there's the other side that is, well, if I don't show up, 2 hours early and stay 2 hours late, I'm not going to get the next job that I want, or I'm not going to get the raise, or I'm not going to get the promotion, or I'm not going to keep my job. And, this sort of, this other form of pressure, it's coming from somewhere. It's coming from somewhere. I never bragged about working 36 hours.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I know what it did to my health and my relationships. I think I think the nugget in Marcus's post, he says, in 5 years' time, nobody will remember how many hours you worked, except for the loved ones who didn't get to spend time with you.
That's it.
That's exactly it, right? Because when my dad had a hourly job. Like my dad worked in a tool die shop when he was working, and I couldn't tell. He never bragged about how many hours he worked, but he did it because we needed to buy things. And like I can tell you, I remember lots of times where I was like, man, I wish my dad was home. Or on Saturdays, man, I wish dad was going to my game. Nope, dad's going to work. So he's got to do some overtime. And like as a kid, you remember that, right? I get comments from my kids all the time about how, hey, are you gonna be able to make it? Yeah, I'm gonna. I'm at a point in my career where yes, I know it's on a Tuesday afternoon at school, but yeah, I will 100% be there, right? And there's I think we as parents, and it's weird, like because this would have never happened to me had I not had kids, but you become a parent. Most of us, not all of us, unfortunately, but most of our priorities shift. Like you go from I live for this job, this is awesome, this is what I am. A lot of people never grow out of that, and that's to me that's really sad. That you go because I started there. Like this was awesome. This is what I did for work. This is what I did in my free time. This is what I dreamt about while I slept. I woke up. I was on Twitter. I was reading what was going on. I was trying to get involved, and I was just, you got to get in there. You got to get in there, like the eternal rat race. And then you realize like it's a hamster wheel. You don't actually go anywhere, right? Unless you're doing purposeful tasks, purposeful things, setting milestones and achieving them. All you're doing is just like there's a great song, a line of the country songs like nobody ever had put on their headstone, boy, I wish I would have spent more time at work. Right? Like I remember, I know what that kind of hustle does to you for your health, both physical and emotional, and relationships and mental health. And I like as soon as that hits you, because at some point, for a lot of us, it does. And you can make the choice like, I guess that's what I am. Or you make the choice like, that can't be me. Like I can't be thundering on a keyboard at 3 a.m. wondering why, I'm spending life alone and my family doesn't know who I am. And I've got no like real life activities. I never leave the comforts of my glowing screen. Like, but that's a choice, and I think that's a bit of growing up that like a lot of us, because we're in tech, it's weird. I don't there's a maybe it's my perspective, but I think there's a disproportionate amount of people in this profession that never get past that pivot point where you're like, holy cow, I need to work so that I can live, not work. Not work shouldn't be what I live.
Yeah, there's also like a little sliver, I would almost say in the middle, I think is a little bit closer to like my story, I guess, is, I remember when my daughter was born, I mean, man, holy smokes, my whole perspective changed completely. And I went into like, oh my God, I've got to make sure, I take care of this small child and my wife. And I went into like whatever it takes kind of thing. Right. You know what I mean? And, and so I worked really hard because I wanted to be good at being I guess a provider, like a better term, you know what I mean? And I knew I had to, so I just want to make sure I fought every day because, at that point you can't, you don't want to lose health insurance or a job or whatever, that kind of thing.
Right.
And I've always had like a hypersensitivity to that. But the byproduct of that was I spent an extraordinary amount of time away from home. I remember when I got my first sort of, I would say my real job, my heavy hitting job, my new boss showed up at my door on a Sunday morning with a box with a mic, which later to be my laptop on the inside, and a bouquet of flowers on top of the box. And in between the pot of flowers and the box was an airline ticket. And I had to get on a plane the very next morning. I was like, oh, whoops, okay. All right, let's do this, And And so, you know, when we talk about things I'm thankful for, is that, my my wife, obviously, but my kids, they've been very forgiving. But yeah, man, it's tough. But I think I will agree that I do see a lot of heads down, hammering away, and that hamster wheel, unfortunately, just keeps getting faster, 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 and faster. Pretty soon, you're just flopping around inside of it, and then you kind of tumble out the side, all bruised up, and nobody's there to take care of you, kind of thing. But with the technologies the way they are today, there's just, I mean, let's call it what it is. Back in the old day, there wasn't that much technology by definition, so there wasn't a lot to keep up with. So you could really be deep. You could go deep and wide quick, right? And really lean into it. And it was very rewarding because you got a lot for the work you put into it.
Yeah, fair.
Today, I feel like I put a lot of work into it. I just get these tiny little morsels like, oh my God, this is so complicated. So you spend so much time peeling off the skin, the covers, and the paper to get to something of a kernel. And you're like, okay, all right, next. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so it's tough. It's very difficult.
I think the other thing that, and I'm thankful for good guidance. You being one of those people, Jim, in my career, where you and Paul Muller, I know Paul still listens every once in a while from down under, taught me that like at some point you got to turn it off. Like I remember Paul emailed me on a Sunday afternoon because I was doing something and I was on the line. He goes, "If you don't disconnect, I will have your account turned off." I was like, okay, he's bluffing. He wasn't. But it's like you have to. This industry, we've talked about burnout for a while. It's sort of like faded off because I guess we found the next shiny thing to chase. But this is holiday season now, right? I get it. Attackers don't rest like we need to. They've got their jobs, but their jobs are to pay attention when we're not. So I'm not saying like take the day off, it's holiday season, like just stop paying attention. But there's a fine, it's not even a fine line. Let's be clear. I think to me, there's a very bright line between I'm doing the job, I am maintaining my professional acumen, and then like a time comes and it's family time now. Mm-hmm. Like it's time to put some time into my kids. It's time to go build a puzzle. It's time to play with some Legos. It's time to go meet some friends at the whiskey club. It's time to like sit on the deck and just smoke a cigar and stare at the stars. Like it's just time to just put the earmuffs on, turn the phone off. I've started, so these wonderful devices are also like the bane of our existence.
Yeah, phones.
But there's this wonderful feature called Do Not Disturb in focus mode. Right? Yep. So I use focus mode when we record podcasts, when I've got meetings during the day. Right? There's a couple of people that can text me or call me, and my phone will ring because it's my parents. That's hopefully when they're calling me. Like it's my kids' school, and some loved ones and stuff like that. But outside of that, there's nothing that you like. There's nothing that somebody is going to call me and tell me that I need to drop what I'm doing right now. And I started doing the at first it was Do Not Disturb after like 9 p.m. And over the last couple of years, I've slowly ratcheted that back.
Yeah,
it turns off. My Do Not Disturb goes on at 6.
Yeah. Well, you beat me. I got it at 7. I tell you, that was one of the best things I learned about phones is by getting control over notifications, right? There's a whole conversation around that. I do want to say something that's really important. And I'm an old guy now, officially. And so it sounds weird coming from an old guy because you think, oh, well, old people don't really have that gumption and all that kind of whatever it is. Truth be told, you absolutely have it. But over the years, what I've learned, and it took me a long time to learn this, is if you work really, really hard for a lot of time, your quality of work, you think that you're doing really good work, when in reality that you're working yourself into that low, and then all of a sudden that low becomes the norm, and by taking a break, by disconnecting, people feel disconnected. The FOMO, all that kind of stuff kicks in, right? We've all been there. But if you get into a rhythm of even the slightest amount of time just disconnecting, right? You know, play a video game, make a puzzle, read a book, do something, and not a technology book if you're in technology, obviously. But it actually makes you better on the flip side. You come into it fresher, and you can do more with the time that you've allotted, and you'll find that you're able to accomplish an amazing amount of meaningful activity in the same amount of time that you would have normally just overworked yourself into a circle.
That is so. That's a fantastic tip. If you guys are listening to this, that is something to take note of. There's you get started on a problem, your productivity is high, you start peaking and plateauing because your brain starts churning, and then you're churning on the same ideas over and over and over, and eventually you're like, why can't I solve this? That's the point at which that's the furthest point at which you should say, pause, I'm walking away. Go do anything else as long as it's not related to the thing that you're working on. All right. I've done this with back when I had to write code. I've done this with, I build models now for clients and myself. And you start to get to it, you're like, this data, like this isn't making, like, the math's not mathing. This isn't making sense. I was like, all right, hold on. Tell my Mac, go to sleep. I'm going to go walk away. I'm going to go sit on deck, smoke a cigar. I'm going to go build some Legos with my kids. I'm going to go do something. If it's in the middle of the day, I'm just going to go for a walk around the neighborhood, put some headphones on, like listen to some good music, just breathe some fresh air. You come back, you stare at it and go, oh, and like, boom. If you had that moment, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And it's that moment doesn't come from staring at the same problem for 7 hours. It doesn't. There's no amount of staring at it that's suddenly going to make your brain look at it from a fresh perspective. And there's something about that. There's just something about that, like seeing it, and your brain just goes, oh, hold on, boom, it worked. And you've been gone for 15 minutes, it's different for everybody. I feel like I really at least 30 minutes need to completely clear it, because it's got to clear my conscience and clear my conscious thought completely. Like not at the edge, not at the periphery, but like gone. So I sit down at my desk and go, what was I doing? Right? Oh, right, this thing. And you go, oh, why didn't I make this earlier? And I've done that so many times that like eventually it just like sinks in. When you start feeling like you're stuck on something, go do something else. Anything else, just not. Yes, it is. Because thinking about it more isn't going to solve it. And it's just, I don't understand the psychology and the brain dynamics behind it. Other than I can make an analogy. As a former Jeep guy and an avid off-roader, if you're sitting, like if you get stuck, right? You're sitting in a rut, forward, reverse, forward, reverse, forward. Like, I can't get out of here. But obviously once you're stuck, right? Not as you're getting stuck, but once you're stuck, you realize you're stuck. Like, all right, I got to get out of here. Got to walk away for a second. And at that's usually the point where you realize, like, I'm making this worse. All I'm doing is digging a deeper rut, sinking deeper in the mud, getting myself stuck deeper in this hole. All right, how do I get out of here? Like, your focus goes from I'm just go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, because eventually I think the thing that happens is you try to brute force it.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I've done that where I've been stuck in a mud hole and you just brute force it, and suddenly you go from like halfway up your tires to like you can't see your tires anymore. You're like, oh shit, that didn't work. Right? That somehow I've made this worse. And all I've done was, oh right, I tried to brute force it. Nothing, it just doesn't, like, life doesn't work that way. You can't just brute force things.
You have to push it completely out of your mind.
Yes. You force your brain to look at it from a different perspective. And it's amazing how that works.
Yeah.
I could
crow people go walks to think about the problem. And I'm actually is like, I want to separate myself as far as I can from the problem. Right. And then come back, like you said, 15, 20, whatever it is for you. And you come back and you're like, what was that whole point, that moment you just explained where you're like, what was I working on? That moment where you're like, you got to bring yourself back into the loop. And then you find yourself coming at a completely different angle. And you can, and I think we have this culture of like, work it, especially in security where everything seems to be an emergency anyway. Right. So you're not given that opportunity. You find yourself exhausted at the end of the day. And so, you don't have SOC analysts just jumping up out of their chair, going out for a walk.
But they should.
Exactly.
There should be like, that's an interesting thought, right? Because here we are. We just did a series on AI and everything's about AI. And now I'm reading about the AI tech bubble and how we've overbuilt data centers because AI is going from, in the cloud or in some centralized location back out to the edge, which is weird because every trend has worked that way. Start centralized. We realized we could do it better, closer to where the problem is. Ta-da. And there we are. But we're talking about all this stuff, solving problems. Maybe like the reality of what AI does can give us, and I'm trying to think of like how to phrase this, but give us the ability. If you're a SOC analyst, right, you're looking at packets all day, you're looking at anomalies all day, you're trying to make sense of what you're seeing. Maybe what AI does for us is it takes the mundane, the things that your brain actually just cycles on, and allows you to have fresh perspective. It presents you with new things, like, hey, maybe it's this, or have you thought about this, and it's not giving us the answer, but it's giving us the opportunity to look at something from a completely different angle all the time, right? And so we don't get stuck in that cycle, that hamster wheel, right?
I've never considered that before. I think it's very viable. I think this is where we get into the psychology of AI, right? Right now, I think it's tell me about this, as opposed to what do you think about this, right? In other words, those are two very different animals. You're using it as a search mechanism versus a collaborative mechanism, right?
Yep.
And I think there's something to be said for that. I do believe that AI is sort of an amplifier. So if you're not careful, it can suck you down that rabbit hole as well.
Yeah.
But if you approach it with the idea of, I'm going to look at this from thinking about things from a different angle, just to free up my brain from this godforsaken, rat trap I got myself sucked into with this problem solving.
Right.
I don't know. Yeah. I think it's going to be real interesting, but there's a lot in the psychology of stepping away. And I think people shouldn't be held guilty for wanting to step away. I think there are people who abuse systems that, like recharge systems and stuff like that, But if you're genuinely in a situation where you're fighting with challenges and it's very awkward feeling, but you got to step away, away from it for a minute, even though it seems awkward.
That's a good point though, too. I think we'll end it on this, is that there are probably times where it's not it's not one problem you're working on it. Okay, time to step away for a minute. Like, you just may be feeling, you ever like show up at work, you're like, I feel like I've been doing the same thing every day. I feel like I'm stuck. Like, I feel like I'm just, something doesn't feel right. I've lost my zest for the thing. That's when I love and I love extra because we get the opportunity, like we're on this recharge system, right? You don't have 2 weeks vacation. You take time when you need it. Now, the danger is there are people who never take the time, but people who actually get how this works, and they encourage us to do that here, is like, there's a point at which you go, all right, I've been running on this treadmill for a while. We just ground through 4 customers worth of on sites and this and that. Like, or I just finished 2 weeks of straight travel. I'm taking 2 days and I'm turning my work off. Like, I'll be back in 2 days. The world's not going to burn without me. We're structures that you have a backup, right? Like, if there's an emergency, I'll talk to you in 2 days, right? There's like, honestly, if you ask yourself this, because I know we're like, oh, but what if something happens? How many of you guys that are listening to this right now have a job where if you don't answer the phone, like, somebody's life is at stake? All right. There are very few of us out there. And if you are in one of those positions, are you sure there's not a backup for you? And if not, then what the hell?
That was broken.
That's a problem. That's a different problem. Right. But I have been in that where, like, okay, I need to get this. Like, I have to be available. And you sit and think about it for a minute. You go, yeah, but why? Why do you have to be available? Is the world really going to burn down if you're not there? Like, if that web server fails, or if nobody's there to respond to that ticket for 2 days, is that going to be okay? And I think the answer really sometimes is, yeah, it'll be all right. Because I've got somebody that's going to take over for me for 2 days. It's not going to be their number one priority, but they'll work on the emergencies if there is such a thing. And I will come back more productive than I am right now, which means, you get that productivity pop and you start kind of edging your way back down slowly, catch yourself and get that and go back, right? And go back and go back to the well and refresh. I think that's a great theme. Just go back and refresh from the well. Go get that cold drink of water, breathe some air. As the kids say, touch some grass, man.
Yeah. Run your fingers through the grass. Or
that's right.
Yeah.
Dude, I have honestly, I have a couple of times this year where it's been like, oh my God, I've just gone through 6 hours of meetings and I've got some customer deliverables that are due before the end of the day. And I've literally walked out and just like lay down on my back in my driveway and just like laid there for a minute. One of the times was in the afternoon. My kids came, were playing. They're like, Dad, are you okay? Like, yeah, I'm actually feeling much better now. Like the sun is beating down. I don't know what's going on at work. My phone's inside. It's just me and it's the sunshine and some chirping birds. I'm feeling great.
Sunshine heals all wounds, man. I got to tell you, when I get outside and get the sun, man, it makes everything better. I got to be honest.
Yeah, you know what? I think I've discovered my personal favorite in therapy, and that is sitting on a boat in the middle of the lake, just floating, doing nothing, just letting the cool breeze hit you, just floating, and just like, man, there's nothing wrong with the world right now. Find your happy place, people. Find your happy place and use it liberally. Don't burn yourselves into the ground. Thanks, Jim. This has been fun.
It's good stuff, man. There we go.
This is what happens when somebody doesn't show up to a guest appearance, and we just do our own thing.
Ain't nothing wrong with that.
Ain't nothing wrong with that. And my cat is over here on the beanbag snoring. I don't know if you guys can hear her, but she is. It is 11 a.m. My cat is over here snoring. Now, at 3 a.m., you could hear her echoing throughout the house because she was just running around, I don't know, yelling at something.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm just glad I didn't wake her up. All right. Thank you so much. And I will see you guys another time, another place, on another Down to Security Rabbit Hole podcast. Get some rest. Ciao, y'all.